All right, guys, here we go. We're going to start rigging. This first project, or this first part of the rigging process, is we are going to be setting up our file to actually do the rigging, and then we're going to be um, organizing our outliner along the way and renaming objects and joints in order for us to basically keep ourselves nice and organized while we're doing this, because there's nothing worse than being disorganized, especially when it comes to rigging, because it is very detail oriented. So we want to make sure that we stay as detail oriented as possible with this process. Okay, so where I'm at right now is um, you've already retopoed your body mesh, or whatever mesh you need to retopo. You take it back into ZBrush. You do your reprojections, and so once you've done that, do the reprojections and export all of your meshes, your low res meshes. You just basically re-import them into Maya. In case you're not aware, file, import. Right there, you can import them one by one. You can also just open the folder and drag the OBJ files into Maya, and they'll drop in nice and easy for you. Okay. All right. We do need to set up a few things. We do need to make sure we have some stuff basically organized. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and grab my entire mesh, everything included. I'm going to go ahead and hit W for move, and I'm going to pick him up and plant his feet right on the grid. Okay. The character needs to be facing down the Z axis. So if he's not facing down the Z axis, we need to make a 90-degree turn somewhere and get it facing down that axis properly. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do, reselect all the meshes. I'm going to go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. So when I moved the character up, you'll see that it actually got a translation here over in the channel box. We need to clean that out. All of these got translations. So we need to go in and go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. And that froze all the transformations in here. This is exceedingly important. We will be freezing transformations a lot, and I want you to pay attention to this. If you do not freeze your transformations, that can cause some very major problems with your rig down the road. It may not appear like it does right now, but you have to do it. One of the things that I'll do when I'm grading your rigs is I will basically select everything, set your translations to 0, and if stuff moves or breaks the rig, then it breaks the rig and it's not working properly. So you got to make sure you do it. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is reselect all the mesh, hit Control G, double click, and I'm going to name this. He needs a name, but we'll just do mesh group. And so basically what I just did was made a group in the outliner for all of my meshes. There will be multiple groups that we're going to be making. One of them is going to be the mesh group, which we have here. Another one is going to be called a joint group that's going to contain all of the joints. You'll have one for the controllers. It's going to be a con group. And then you'll have maybe some miscellaneous groups here and there. And all of that is going to be under a char group or a character group. That means that we're keeping everything organized, everything related to this character is going to be under one singular group. And that's going to be super important for us to keep track of. Okay. So I'm already kind of setting myself up for success here by going in and doing this. Okay. Let's go ahead and rename some of these pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this body geo. I'm going to rename the claws one claws geo. Eyeballs is going to be, can you guess it? Eyeballs geo. Gums geo. And this is exceedingly important too. If you don't have your stuff named and you're not able to find it easily, um, you're going to have a really bad time. Now, I've already have a lot of the stuff kind of already named anyhow, but when you make something new in Maya, it may be called joint or group or polyface or poly shape or something like that. And you may have 300 of them. So finding out which one's which may be a little bit difficult. Teeth geo, tongue geo. So I have individual scales. Okay. So actually what I'm going to do is select all of these. And I'm going to go to modify, not modify, mesh. I'm going to go to mesh. I'm going to combine them so they're one piece. And then I'm going to do, so they're all just one mesh now, but then I'm going to go and do a vertex select because they actually came in as like multiple pieces. Like if I hit 3, you'll see they actually split a little bit. So what I need to do is actually merge the overlapping vertices. So I'm going to go to mesh, edit mesh, merge. There we go. Edit mesh, merge. I'm going to set my threshold to 0 and hit merge. So you'll see that kind of smooths over a little bit right there instead of being pinched. So that'll work. All right. Go back to object mode, select this guy, snout, scales, geo. Okay. Now, when I created this and did the combine, you'll notice that these groups all popped up. This means these are transforms, essentially. This means this guy has a history. I need to actually delete history. So I'm going to actually select, actually, to be honest, I don't need to select everything. I'm just going to do edit, delete all by type, history. You'll see it got rid of those transforms. I'm going to take my snout scales geo, middle mouse drag it back up under mesh group. Okay. Double check, make sure nothing has any transforms. Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to select mesh group. I'm going to go over here to display. I'm going to click this little button to make a new display layer. That means I can turn on and off the geometry. I'm going to rename it mesh, or we can call it geo layer or mesh layer, whatever you want to call it. This is kind of where you're going to be coming up with your own naming convention that you're going to need to kind of stick with. So I've already got mesh group. I'm going to call it mesh layer. We'll just do that. And in case you're not aware, geometry and mesh are the same thing. There's no difference between them. Cool. All right. So we're ready to go and start laying in some joints. I'm going to go and turn this to basically wireframe, and also it means I cannot select it. So we're good there. We're going to start off with laying in our joints. We're going to be starting off with our root joint. So I'm going to go to rigging right here. And then I'm going to go under skeleton. Let's go and do that and do create joints. So the very first joint we're going to be working with is our root joint. This is going to be the joint that everything else basically is under. It's a child of. And so when you move the root joint, it should move the rest of the joints. Okay. Now there'll be some circumstances where that doesn't always happen when you're using something like an IK, legs or arms. But the system, the skeleton that we're going to be creating will follow the entirety of the wherever the root joint moves. Okay, so we're going to be basically working with that. Now, root joints, where do they go? Basically, this is the way I think about it. The root is going to be the center of your mass. Okay, where your movement starts from, and that's going to be right here in the lower abdomen. Okay. So what I do is I'm going to jump into my orthographic view, hit spacebar, go to my side view, and this way it's going to put the joint directly in the center. And I'm going to go and put a root joint right here. Okay, that's my root. That's joint 1. Let's go and call it root. Actually, we're going to call it root joint. And then we're going to go and work our way up through the spine. Okay, so I'm going to keep myself center of mass as I do my spine joints. Okay, so I'm going to go and do root joint. I'm going to do a joint right here. That's going to be my first spine joint, my second spine joint, third spine joint. You see, I'm still staying center of mass right here. Still staying center of mass. I'm giving myself more or less equal distance here. So right about there. Okay. And then I'm going to go and put a joint right here. This is going to be my base neck joint. So this will be my top spine, and then this will be my base neck joint. And that's going to go up to, let's say, right about here. And then this is going to be kind of going where the spinal column is going to go in the back of the skull. It's going to be right about here. So actually, let me back up real quick. Let's do this. Let's space it out a little bit different. Let's do this one right here and here. Okay, so that's gonna be my top neck joint. And then I'm gonna have a head center joint. So it's really, I just usually put it somewhere in the upper portion of the head or in the skull, the brain case, if you will, head center joint. And then I'm gonna do basically a head top joint. Or you could do you really don't need a snout joint, but you can make one if you want. But we're just doing our one chain right now. So we're just doing these guys, just like that, okay? All right. So let's go ahead and do our tail joints, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do a joint that's gonna go out basically right here. That's gonna be where this is gonna be my connector joint. A lot of limbs that I do will have connectors to the main spine. So I don't just have the hips come straight off the spine. Usually I'll have like a groin joint in between the two hips, and then the hips come off of that one. Reason why it's easier for me to disconnect both of those hips with just one joint. And I can kind of keep the whole leg system in place if I need to. So I'm kind of doing the same thing here with the leg, or with the tail, I mean. So I'm going to do we can call it a tail base joint if you want. And then we're going to do right here where the tail starts to come out, do a tail joint there, do a tail joint here, tail joint here. Now you're probably thinking, well, the tail should be really flexible, so shouldn't you have like a bunch of joints in there? And we will actually. We're going to be doing what's called a ribbon spine, and that ribbon spine is actually going to have a ton of joints in it. But these joints here are actually going to be the controllers for that system. So they're not going to be directly skinned to the mesh, but they're going to control it indirectly. So I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of space here. It's going to make it really easy to control the tail, plus it'll give us a little bit of stretchability. And a little bit here at the tail tip. There you go. That looks good. All right, you notice I have not connected these yet. I'm going to call this guy tail base joint, JNT. Okay. All right, so I was talking about making sure we have frozen transformations. That is for meshes and controllers. Joints can have translations on them. In fact, they will have translations on them. One thing we do not want is rotations. We do need these translations, so don't mess with these, but we do not necessarily want rotations. Okay, I'll show you what happens when or what we can do in order to kind of alleviate having rotations on there. One of the things is by when you lay in your joints, we can actually go in and retrace them. So if we end up having to like rotate joints around in order to get them to like fit, like we're going to have to do for the arms, we can go back and retrace those joints in order to get them to kind of work more for us. So it makes it just a little bit quicker, a little bit easier to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the child. So I'm going to do a nesting parent. Remember from the last video, grab the child, grab the parent. I'm going to hit P, okay? So if we open these up, you'll see kind of where we're going here. So we got a whole bunch of joints, so we're going to be naming a bunch of stuff in a second. All right, I'm going to do, we're going to do jaw. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at, I need to actually turn this on so I can see it. I'm going to go into shading and do X-ray joints. So the jaw, I'm going to go and grab or just place the joint right here. And then I'm going to need to place, actually, no, I'm going to place it here. I need to place it where the jaw pivot is going to be. So where the jaw is actually going to move is somewhere, if you can kind of sort of tell, if you put your hand on the side of your face, kind of press in with your fingertips and talk, just open your mouth, you'll kind of feel where the pivot actually is. It's not where your jaw where the corner of the jaw is. It's above it. So it's not actually right here. It's actually going to be somewhere right about here. So let's do that. Bring that down. And then I'm going to bring this down to here. And then this is going to go all the way out to the tip. Okay. And then I'm going to do another one. Create joint. And that's going to be right in here. That's going to be my eye center joint. And I'm actually going to just go ahead and just, well, you know what? No, let's use it. The eye center joint is going to be basically where the joints for my eyeballs are going to branch off of. And also, I'm going to use that to branch off to a snout joint. Let's do maybe one joint here and one joint here, just in case we need some sort of flexibility here. In theory, this really shouldn't move. We'll have lip movement, sure, but this should be all bone, so it shouldn't move, but you know what? It's animation, so we can kind of do whatever the heck we want. In case you're wondering, you can actually insert a joint. If you go to the Insert Joint tool under Skeleton, click on the parent and drag down, you can insert a joint that way. Pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and name some of these so we know kind of what we're looking at. Let's name it jaw, pivot, joint. And we'll just call this one head center. It's really more of a head center. Still gonna be where the eyes are gonna branch off of. Head center joint. And that is gonna go to here. So we're gonna do child parent, then we're gonna do child parent. Okay, so it's all gonna kind of branch off of there. All right. We're also going to need to do stuff for the tongue. We'll lay that in a little bit later. but we'll put that in when we need it. And also same thing for the eyes. We'll put those in once we get back to the head. Okay, so we're not there yet. All right, let's take a look at the arms, or let's do the legs actually. So I'm going to do a groin joint. That's going to be right here. Hit enter. That's going to be what my legs branch off of. And then I'm going to do create joints. I'm in the front view. So I'm going to put my hip joint where the hip is going to actually be flexing. It's going to be right here. I'm going to go down to my knee, right here. I'm going to do some editing in a second, but I realize what we're doing. I'm going to go down to the ankle. And I'm going to go down to here where the ball of the foot is going to be, okay? Now if we go to the side view, that looks awful. But we're going to move that up. Move that over. Move that over. Now, for those of you that are doing flat feet, this is still the same approach, okay? For flat-footed humanoid characters, same exact approach, okay? So just do it like this. We're still doing the ankles. This will be your ankle joint, and this is going to be the ball of your foot, okay? So basically where your big toe, where like that meaty section is under the big toe, that's the ball of your foot, okay? So like when you lift your heel up, what you're balancing on is the ball. That's it, okay? So again, heel is going to be where you actually physically pivot. Knee is where you physically move. Hip is where you actually physically move, okay? So just make sure you understand that. Actually, to be honest, that's probably should be somewhere right, maybe about there. Okay. I'm going to do another one right here. This is going to be called my toe tip joint. Should just do right there. I'm going to have to move it over. And so this will be, again, flat-footed characters. This will just be the tip of the toe. That's all it is. So that'll be right about there. I'm just parenting that in, okay? All right, now for characters with toes, which should be all of you, this is how I set up my toes. Let's just do it this way. All right, I'm gonna do a base joint at the base of a toe, and then you put a joint wherever the toe needs to pivot, okay, or needs to move from. So if your character has a toe that only has like a couple of joints in it, then you need to put in a couple of joints. So here, they're gonna have basically a pivot 1, 2, 3, and then a toe tip joint. So that's 4. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to go out to the toe tip right there, okay? So I'm going to move that over. Let's go ahead and just jump over to X-ray joints. And I'm going to go and this is where it's going to get a little messy, okay? Where I was talking about having the rotations. It's going to get a little messy. All right. So there we go. So that's going to go there. I'm going to duplicate it, Control D, or Command D if you're in a Mac. I'm just going to move this back here. I'm starting with the base. Okay. I'm just moving and rotating them into position. Now, if you remember when we did the topology, we should be putting extra edge loops where it's going to be bending. Now, I kind of put a lot of edge loops everywhere, but if you can use that to help you remember where they need to go, then that's great. Use that. Do right there, right there, and one right there. Okay. Click in, check in, check in, check in, check in, check in. Looks good. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, actually, I'm going to take that groin joint and move it down here. And just go and parent it down, or parent it in. So what I need to do is go in and basically retrace my joints. So I can get a new set of a new joint chain essentially for the legs that also has proper orientations, proper rotation orientations. They are going to go properly down the joint chain. As you can see here, I have a rotation orientation. If you look at where the red, green, and blue lines are pointing, they're not pointing down the joint chain. They're a little bit offset, and that's not necessarily good, because a lot of this is going to be built on kind of where and how we're dealing with the orientations are set up for these joints. So we're going to make sure we fix that properly. Now, there's a couple of tools that we can use to kind of help ourselves with that. Oh yeah, I forgot I have the dew claw here. I got to put joints into as well. I can do that. We do have an orient joint tool that we can use that's going to basically set that for us properly, which is good. But we also still have the rotates here, so we need to worry about that as well. I'm going to duplicate this, move it over. I just kind of put that in here real quick. Now, the nice thing is I can spend a lot of time working on this, but then I can just mirror over the joint, so I don't have to sit here and like redo this way both sides. Now, if you have a asymmetric character, congratulations, you have to do both sides, which kind of can be a little bit, annoying, but oh well. Let's change the axis orientation over to object. Might be a little bit easier to work with. Okay. I don't think I need that extra joint. I'm going to put this one out on the tip. And we'll just do this one right here in the middle. There you go. Okay. All right. Take all of these. I'm going to go to that toe tip joint. Actually, you know what? The dew claw doesn't need to be on that. The dew claw is going to have to be on the ball. I should be honest, I don't think I've done a dew claw. This will be new for me. We'll figure it out. We'll see where it needs to go. But anyway, the toes definitely for certain need to go here. They need to go right there. So basically it's kind of doubling back on itself, if you will. So yeah, that'll be useful. So you'll see how that kind of joins up. But actually, let's back up for a second. Let's start retracing those joints. But we got everything we need in here. All right, I'm gonna do create joints. I'm actually gonna turn off my turn off the geometry. Actually, let me rename this real quick. I'm gonna call it false hip, just so I know which one it is. All right, create joints. I'm gonna hold down V to snap. You'll see it snaps over to the groin. I'm gonna start there. Go to the hip, go to the knee, go to the ankle, go to the ball, go to the toe tip joint. I'm going to go back up to here for the middle toe and trace to that tip. Okay, that's what I'm doing. All right, I'm going to go and grab false hip and delete it. I don't actually need it anymore. I'm going to do create joints. And I do need to have proper orientation coming in from basically from the base joint here. So I'm going to actually retrace each of these right here. So let's do that one. Actually, that one we can get rid of. We don't need it anymore. This one we do. I'm going to call it false. False outer. So I know which one to delete. False inner. False Dukla. And then this will be the one we're working with. Okay. So I'm going to go back to create joint. I'm going to retrace each one of these toes. So I'm going to go V, and go back up here, 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 and here. Done. Okay. I'm going to do it again. Hit G, V, retrace. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to do, it's going to need to be following the ankle. So let's do, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the ankle. So if we move the ball, yeah, it's going to be the ankle. G, just do V. So a lot of rotation orientations are inherited from the parent, which is why I'm going basically one extra joint up than I actually need to. And actually, you'll see it actually does change the direction of the joint a little bit right here when you look at the original versus the child. So I'm going to go and delete the falses, but I don't necessarily need that extra ankle joint or the extra toe tip joints. So I'm going to get rid of those, but I'm still maintaining those rotation orientations that I created by retracing them. I'm going to delete those extra joints, and I'm going to go and grab, let's see, this guy. He's going to go up here. This one and this one. We're going to go over here. Nope. Where is it? I mean, that one. So 2047. Okay. Child, parent. I need to do control so it actually selects them both and do P. There we go. Child, control, P. There we go. Okay, now we got them. So everything is pointing up the right way. Select it, make sure it's working. Yep. Yep. Okay, I think we're good. This is doing this approach allows us to incorporate the reverse foot setup better. So that's one reason why we're doing this. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and unparent. Grab that false joint, that extra groin joint. And I'm going to go and name this left hip joint. And that's going to go under groin joint, just like that. Okay. Now I can go and start mirroring this over a little bit. So I'm going to grab the groin joint and we're going to go to mirror joints. We want it to mirror across the Y, Z axis. Imagine there's like a split, like a plane that goes on the Y and the Z axis. And that's what we want to mirror across. I want it to basically search for and replace the term left and replace it with right. So actually, I probably need to go in and just rename everything first, and then it basically will fix the naming for me. So let's actually do that real quick. Let's do left knee joint. And you're probably wondering, why is it calling it left? Well, the reason why is because I look at it from this point of view, always. Look at it from the character's point of view, and you kind of see where I'm coming from. Is that we're naming it left because it is that character's left. Name it right because of that character's right. Left ankle joint. Left ball joint. We'll do this one. Left. Is it D-E-W or D-U-E for dew claw? Let's do left dew claw base joint. Don't know. I'm gonna figure it out. All right. Left dew claw mid joint. Also, if you try these spaces, it'll change it to a underscore. Left dew claw tip joint. And a lot of times I'll put in those underscores, so it's a little bit easier to read. Okay. Left toe tip joint. And be consistent with how you're naming like left and right. So basically, just be consistent with how you're naming things in general. Because if you go do like a search and replace or anything like that, like from left to right or right to left, if you say L-E-F-T, like capital L-E-F-T, and then do like a few lowercase L-E-F-Ts, Maya actually sees them as different, even though we may not. So you want to make sure you're being consistent with that. Left mid toe base joint. Left mid toe mid joint. Actually, you could do maybe instead of like mid joint, do joint 1, and then do joint 2. Left, mid, toe, joint 2, and then I need to, where is it? There we go. Left, mid, toe, joint. And then for the finishing joints, I'll just always do tip. Left, outer, base, outer, toe, base, joint. If you want to move a little bit faster, we could take what we're going to be copying, left outer toe, and then Control C, Control V, joint 1, 2, 3, tip. That might be a little bit faster. And then I'm going to name this left inner toe joint, base. Copy that. One, 2, tip. There you go. All right, that's all named. Okay, that's a lot of work right there just for the leg, but hopefully we should be able to mirror it. There we go. All right, so I got basically 2 groin joints. Let me back up. Let's try with just the hip. And they're both under the same groin joint. Excellent. And you see, because I named everything, you know, right or left, it replaced it with right because I said so in the mirror section. And right here, I said search for left, replace with right. Close. There we go. Excellent. Excellent. All right, I'm going to take the groin joint, go to the root joint, and hit parent. Okay, so that's now under all of that. Okay. We can do, let me show you how to do search and replace names. So I'm going to just go and grab like all of this. And I'm going to go under modify, search and replace. And I'm going to search for the word that's common, which is joint, lowercase joint, replace with tail. And like I said before, we're going to be doing what's called a ribbon spine for the tail and actually for the spine as well. So these are going to be considered control joints. So I'm going to do tail control joint. Make sure it's just the one selected and click replace. And so you'll see that it actually names all of these. Now I need to rename the actual joint numbers. And we do control joint tip. Okay. And then we got the spine here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 spine joints. We can, where are these guys? Right here. Do the same thing again. Search and replace. Search for joint. Rename it with spine control joint. Spine control joint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That 5th one is actually going to be my top spine. That's going to be kind of the denoter of where the end of the spine is going to be. And then I'm going to have my neck joint right here. Turn on that mesh layer just to be sure. Okay. Yeah, so that'll be all of this. I'm going to call it neck control joint. Click apply. Okay. Again, not everything's going to be called a control joint. This is just simply because we're going to be using these as control joints for the ribbon spine, which we'll be talking about next for the next project. Okay, I'm gonna name this one. Let's see. Oh, one too many. This one's gonna be the head center. Yeah. Head center joint. Or head base. No, yeah, head center is fine. We'll just rename this one eye center joint. Head top joint. We'll call it upper jaw mid joint. Upper jaw tip joint. And then we'll do, so that's jaw pivots right here. And then we're going to do our joint. That's going to be jaw joint 1. Jaw joint 2. Now, some of these joints may not actually ever flex. So just because we're putting joints there doesn't mean we're going to be moving from that position. Not always. Jaw joint tip. Okay. All right. So that just leaves the arms. So basically, same thing we did with the legs, we're going to be doing with the arms. Okay. Let's start off with a center chest joint. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and, so we're going to have a shoulder right about here, but we're actually going to have a clavicle joint right about here. Okay. The reason why is because you actually, when you raise your arm, there's multiple bones that move when you lift your arm. So you're going to be putting a joint right here that's going to help us. We can actually pick up our shoulder from that point. So we're going to put in a clavicle joint here. Your shoulder joint is going to be right about here. So it's going to be right about here. Yeah, let's do right there. Elbow. And then wrist. Okay. And then we'll move these into position wherever we need them. So right about there. The shoulder, again, center of mass. And then elbow. That's close. A little low, or a little high, I mean. And then wrist. Okay. Maybe a little, okay, there we go. So I think that will work. Okay. All right. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting up the hand and finger joints. So we'll go ahead and put in 3 joints. So I'm going to put in a joint that's going to sit right in the middle of the hand. Okay, that's going to be referred to as our null joint. And then we'll just go ahead and go off of that. That's going to go to our base finger. And then that's going to go right here, here, and here. Do another one. Right here, 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 and here. And then we'll do thumb. Now for your thumb, remember you only got a few joints for that. Like that. And then we'll just go ahead and grab the pinky. 1, 2, 3. I can't see where the tip is, but we'll just go and put it right there. Okay, so these are all wildly out of position, but we're going to grab them all. Okay. So thumb. Rotate that up. And remember, we're still going to go back and retrace these. All right. It's going to go right there. A little bit higher. Straighten it up. It's going to be a little bit tricky, especially with some of these, these finger joints are kind of going into a couple of different directions. Just try to line it up the best you can. And just keep checking different angles, making sure you're looking at all the directions. Make sure everything kind of feels right. Okay. Because if you mess up here, I mean, we can fix it, but we don't want to get too far down the road. When you start rigging, that you have to go back and fix any of this because that's a big problem. Like here, we want to get it right at this stage. We really do. Okay, I think I got an extra joint in there accidentally. Okay. Delete you. That looks okay. Okay. Okay, I think that's good. Just double check everything. Just gonna roll around each of the digits, make sure everything's in the center. I think it works. Okay, cool. That null joint go that I had. Oh, I bet that was what that extra joint here was. Okay, let me throw one extra one in. All right. It's going to go right there. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to grab my handy dandy joint tool. Let's go and turn off our geometry. Hit V, and I'm going to start snapping. And so I want to go from wrist to null joint. And then we'll go from there to middle finger. Okay. And then I'm going to do basically from the null joint to the rest of the finger. So this is kind of like the toe tip joint in a way. Snap. There you go. Then we're going to do another snap. There you go. Okay. Sorry, I skipped ahead for a second. I had a phone call, but so anyway, these all basically just got retraced. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get these original fingers. Go ahead and delete them. Okay, take them out. And I'm going to go ahead and take each one of these new fingers and basically just uncouple it from that false null joint. we have here. So got those two fingers. Got this one. Okay. So let's go and delete these three. Delete that extra one. All right, so that's basically all of our joints right there. So we'll go connect, connect, and connect. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and take the original shoulder and shoulder, clavicle, shoulder, elbow, and wrist joint, delete that. This is the original center chest joint. I'm going to take the basically unparent the new clavicle and put that under the center chest joint. Okay, so let's go and rename this. We're going to call it center chest joint. I'm just going to open all this up. So we'll do left clav joint. Left shoulder joint. Left elbow joint. Left wrist joint. Left null joint. Okay. And let's do left thumb joint base. Place that. See. Okay. And then that'll be the mid. And then that'll be the tip. Okay. Left pinky base. Joint base. Okay. All right, grab that. Two. Joint tip. Okay. Left index. Joint base. Left middle joint face. Copy that. Joint 1. Joint 2. Tip. Done. Save it. Make sure you save it. I'm a fan of doing iterative saving. So every once in a while, I'll do a save scene as, and give yourself like a version number. So you can go back and undo, or if you run into mistakes or something like that, you can go back and fix them. Okay, let's grab that shoulder. I'm gonna go skeleton, mirror joints. Again, left, right, mirror. It all should be under that clavicle. Should be good. And that is going to go under this spine top joint, this one right here, okay? So that's all going to get parented under this. Save it. And actually, you know what, while we're here, let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna go ahead and put the joints in for the eyes, and we'll put joints in for the tongue too, just, you know, while we're here. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab the eyeballs. Actually, I need them to split. So I'm gonna do modeling, mesh, separate. And then I'm gonna do modify, center pivot. Center pivot. Basically, I just need to get the center pivots in the middle of the eyeballs, okay? All right, so what I need to do is go ahead and make a new joint. And what I'm going to do with that, I'm just going to basically lay it down here on the floor. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the eyeball. And I'm going to hit P for parent, okay? And what I should be able to do is grab the eyeball, or grab the joint. Actually, that won't work. Here, let me try this. I was trying to do a trick, see what the follicle joints, what we normally do, but that didn't work. So I need to basically get a joint in the center of this eyeball, okay? We can do that. You can either move it or we can just pop it in with a parent constraint. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and grab the eyeball, which is going to be the parent, grab the joint, which is going to be the child. I'm going to go back to rigging, and I'm going to go to constrain parent. I'm going to click on the options. I'm going to turn off maintain offset. If it's already turned off, you're fine. Click add, and you'll see that the joint pops into the center, okay? So basically just move. That's what I wanted, was it for it to move. If you go to the joint right here, you'll see that it says parent constraint. I'm actually going to delete that, but you'll see that the joint stays in that location. I'm going to duplicate that joint. I'm going to click on the other eyeball, click on that joint, and I'm going to go back to constrain and do another parent constraint. So see how it popped into that eye? That's exactly what I wanted. Go in, delete that parent constraint, okay? I'm going to grab the two joints, hit D. I'm just going to move them straight forward, okay? These are going to be what we call the pointer joints, for basically the tip joints for the eyes, so we know where the eyes are kind of pointing at, okay? So actually, let's take this one. I'm going to move it just a little bit out this way. And I'm going to take that one, move that one. You know what? I want to make sure it's the same on both sides. Let's do this. I'm just going to do a mirror joints essentially. So this guy is going to be child of this one. This will be left eye center joint. Left eye tip joint. Okay. So I'm going to nest it under here. And then let's go to this guy. Go to skeleton, mirror joints. There we go. All right, so just mirrored over. And we're good. And we should rename it. Yes, right. We're good. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the root joint. Everything at this point should be under the root joint in some way. Okay, so we only should see the root joint. If you have other joints here that are just kind of floating off by themselves, they're not parented properly, so you need to go back and make sure they're in the hierarchy or in the tree, if you will. I'm going to take the root joint, hit Control G. I'm going to group it to itself. I'm going to rename that group Joints Group. Okay. I'm going to take both the Joints group and the Mesh group and group them. I'm going to name that Lizard Man Char Group. Okay. So at this point, we now have a char group. If we look under it, we have a joints group. We have a mesh group. Okay. So we have all of that. The eyeballs, we do need to name them, since I did split them. So let's go and rename them. Eyeball left geo, eyeball right geo. I'll grab both of these, delete by type, history, and just leave them in there. You'll see that they got put into their own group. That's fine. Rename it eyeball geo group. And just double check, make sure everything looks good, make sure everything's named. Looks like everything's named. All right, I think we're good. Go ahead and save it. And that's the end of part one of rigging. We've laid in the joints. We named all the joints. We named all of our geometry. We did some mirroring, and I think we're good. So go ahead and turn that in, and then we'll move on to the next step.